According to the War Research Institute, a victory for Russia would have disaster results for Ukraine and the United States and NATO. The Washington-based thinking tank warned Russian Ukraine against stopping of military and economic support to Kiev, a subject that has become symbol of Congress in Congress. At the beginning December, the Republicans prevented Ukraine's funds supporting war efforts in a total $50 billion. $111 billion emergency expenditure. On December 13, 2023, man walks around destructive hangar after Russian attack in Odessa. The War Inspection Institute warned that if the US and Europe stops, Russian victory in Ukraine is far from being impossible. Meanwhile, the support of Ukraine's European allies is decreasing. ISW said, if the US interrupts all military aid and follows the European case, a Russian conquest of all Ukraine is not impossible in any way. He said, the thinking tank has published a series of maps that show how Europe would look if Russia won the war in Ukraine, in the person with which Russia won a complete victory in Ukraine. Russian units appear on the border of Lithuania, Poland, Moldova, Slovakia and Romania. The map assumes that the Russians would pass to NATO. If they want to pay the financial price, they can bring much more war power towards the borders of NATO after a victory against Ukraine, without any strategic costs. ISW wrote, if Moscow wins the war in Ukraine and wins Russian air defenses show a scenario that reached Hungary and Scandinavian countries. ISW wrote that NATO would now defend against such an attack with the forces in Europe. The cost of these defense measures will be astronomical, and the U.S. forces will probably accompany a very high risk when they are not prepared or maintained enough to leave both together and both together. On other hand, a Ukrainian victory, including re-establishment of control over Crimea, would also be important for United States and NATO and Kiev. A map showing possible deployment of Russian troops created by War Institute should win war against Kyiv Moscow and regain control of Crimea. Meanwhile, current situation in Ukraine shows that Kyiv's troops have managed to keep the Russians away from eastern borders of Poland, Slovakia, Hungary and Romania, according to the War Institute. As December 12, 2023, an up-to-date map of the arrangement Russian and NATO forces